Well, I didn't think my first video towards the blue blur would be this, but this was something I've always wanted to do for a good while, and mostly it's because I haven't seen anyone talk about these comics, other than the fact like, yeah, that was a thing, and yeah, that was weird, but Sonic has always been weird, from turning into a werehog, kissing human princesses, having siblings with the same voice actor as himself, aliens, and whatever fever dream adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was. With comics in general, I try to keep up with DC and dabbling a tad into Marvel, but mostly I just keep up with the Caped Crusader with the rest of the Bat family, and keep up with the Webhead and his extended universe. While I don't feel qualified to talk about them in great detail, Sonic was someone that I always tried to keep in track with, especially with his extended universe. So I figured I'd start with the Archie series, dabble a bit into the Sonic the Comics series, and when I feel like I can get there, the currently ongoing IDW series. I figured the best place to start with the Archie series is not necessarily the beginning. You could start with the beginning, but honestly, the original comics were very Looney Tunes and Merry Melody style antics with episodic style storytelling. It wasn't until around issue 21 that they started to have plot, and we start to have comic issues with stories. Which, if I made a video on each random issue without a continuing story, then it would sound all disjointed, and you really would have a hard time following along with the overarching story. This was due to different writers, the earliest part with Michael Gallagher's writing in this style, but it wasn't until around issue 11 with Mike Kantorvich, who used to write for Marvel, and Ken Penders. I could go on a rant about the former, but let's save that for right now. Just know that some of the early comics under Pender's story writing are under huge controversy, to say the least, and we can highlight them when it comes up. That's not to say he was the only writer during those times, but he had his hands in a lot of these comics. Now, some issues do refer to the issues that came before it, based on where we are starting, and I can always mention them and bring up anything of importance. But for the sake of a cohesive narrative, the only thing you really need to know up until this point is that Dr. Ivo Robotnik, as he is known, now took over Mobius with his nephew Smithy, using a roboticizer on the Mobians, which is the anthropomorphic inhabitants on planet Mobius, which we will get more into in a later time. The only remaining Mobians are a few stragglers and the Freedom Fighters, made up of Sonic the Hedgehog, his buddy Miles Tails Prower, the Princess Sally Acorn, Engineer Rotor, Bunny Rabot, and Antoine de Coyote. The same from the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, most commonly referred to as Sonic at the AM, or Saddam by the fans. In fact, it was because of both Saddam and the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog that the comics were based on the latter. That was until Saddam got more of a following that they decided to follow a more serious route. For now, I'm focusing on Sonic directly. I can make separate one-off videos for the Sally miniseries or Tails. Hell, if we touch on Knuckles, he'd have his own series of videos for a bit. Alright, so moving forward, we pick up with issue number 39. This is where we see a continuity really start, and it's interesting it's with the Mecha Madness arc. We begin with Sonic talking to the other members of the Freedom Fighters to letting himself purposely get roboticized into a mecha and have Rotor give him free will. This is dismissed by the entire Freedom Fighters team, saying that having a Mecha Sonic would be too powerful to let loose in case something goes wrong. Sonic, stuck in his mind sight, storms out of the meeting and heads to go blow off some steam, lifting weights, and then he gets KO'd by Knack the Weasel. For those unaware, Knack is a character that was made in the Sonic Triple Trouble as an antagonist, alongside Knuckles the Echidna. He shows up for time to time, and he's, for all intents purposes, a bounty hunter. He's not particularly great, but he does do his job, to whoever hires him. For most of the time, it's Robotnik. Knack goes to deliver Sonic to Robotnik, only for him to get stiffed on payment, barely escaping with his life. With Sonic in Robotnik's control, he decides that he's not going to monologue, he's not going to gloat, and he's just going to put Sonic in and just have him be a robot and be done with it. Understanding it's a villain trope that most of them do, and one he will repeat and make the same mistake again. With this, because Sally had been turned into a robot before and then turned back, Robotnik made some modifications to the roboticizer, so that way he could make sure that Sonic couldn't have free will if they managed to do so. Now, what the roboticizer does is that it amplifies Sonic's abilities and makes him stronger, but he also has his old memories, it's just he's brainwashed under Robotnik's control. With that info, Sonic has Robotnik tell him to go out and level Knothole. What ends up happening is that because of security measures and safety protocols, they recognize it's Sonic coming, and he's a mecha. Sally tells Nicole her handheld device with sentient AI to start activating their security measures to basically stall Sonic, because as they have shown in the past, Sonic being turned against his friends is a concept that we have seen before, and it was something that usually played for a quick, like, well, what if scenario. Nothing permanent or long term, minor brainwashing, alternate universe where Sonic is evil, and trust me, we'll get into that guy. But what they end up doing is that they send the only other person that could handle Sonic that's on the team, and that's Bunny. Bunny, for those unaware, is a Southern Belle rabbit character who joined the Freedom Fighters after Sonic saved her from being roboticized entirely and hopes to be able to become full Mobian again. But she has the ability to fly, shoot lasers, and has some robotic strength, so she's a powerhouse on the team compared to everybody else. While all this is happening, Robotnik is watching from his control center and boosts up Sonic's power even more, which sends Bunny down for a moment, only for her to get back up and say, well, not the best remark, a term that definitely hasn't aged well, and just move past it for right now. She fights Sonic for a few moments, only for her to get slammed into the ground. That is when Knuckles shows up as the apparent secret weapon Knothole has. Now, for those of you who know, Knuckles from the video game as a red-hot bruiser, that's here sorta. I can get more into his backstory in another issue, but for the purposes of the story, this was a favor from Princess Sally, and starts wailing into Mecha Sonic only for him to eventually overpower Knuckles. We pick up with the next issue, Mecha Madness Special, where we see Mecha Sonic destroying Knothole, and that Sally had given an evacuation order. With this, she is ordering the Freedom Fighters to bring out the portable roboticizer, which is the same one that was used to turn Bunny into half a robot. Sally orders Rotor to make it operational and to turn Knuckles into Mecha Knuckles. We cut back over to Mecha Sonic, who, after setting Knothole on fire, we see him turn his sights onto Tails. But this is where the hesitation comes in, and we see Mecha Sonic trying to overcome Robotnik's influence. But the Doctor chimes in to have him stop resisting and to follow orders, with Robotnik asking for Sonic's coordinates so he can send nukes to Knothole's location and to finish them off himself. But before Sonic can tell him, we see Mecha Knuckles come in to start bashing Mecha Sonic. After raining blows back and forth, Mecha Sonic sends Mecha Knuckles flying into the warheads of Robotropolis when Mecha Knuckles manages to magnetize himself to blow up Mecha Sonic alongside him, seeming to be completely vaporized, and the heart of Robotropolis was destroyed, but not without the good Doctor pouring out of a manhole, seeming to survive in a shelter after seeing the two mechs flying towards him. After seeing the remains of his city, he notices rumbling in the craters to see that Mecha Sonic, albeit completely damaged, is still functioning. But that also includes Mecha Knuckles, who decks Robotnik in the face and takes Mecha Sonic with him. Heading back to Knothole, Mecha Knuckles lays Mecha Sonic down, who's in critical condition, and have Mecha Knuckles go through the portable roboticizer to have him de-roboticize. But can't do the same for Mecha Sonic due to the fact this wasn't the same machine that he went through. With Mecha Sonic barely staying online, Sally gives Rotor Nicole to essentially try their best to fix and bring back Sonic. After analysis due to a previous issue and plot point use because they can't kill off the title character, in issue 35, Sonic had collected his 1 billionth ring, which in that issue was more showing off a group of deities known as the Ancients that will play a bigger role later on down the road. But it sent Sonic into an alternate zone where the Chaos Rings and Emeralds originate from here on Mobius. Due to the fact he had collected so many rings, he had a protective aura around Sonic's essence and allowed his core being to remain intact, while Robotnik's machine created a mech around Sonic. Thanks to Deus Ex Nicole over here, she is able to link up to Sonic and surge the machine to bring him back with the power of the Chaos Rings. Look, a lot of things get yada yada here, but it brings the blue blur back in the flesh after getting back on his feet. Knuckles returns back to normal to less than favorable greetings from Sonic, not remembering everything that happened with him wiping out most of Knothole. Knuckles leaves ticked off only for Sonic to be put in handcuffs by Antoine, with everyone agreeing that Sonic had disobeyed a direct order in regards to letting himself being roboticized, not knowing Sonic was kidnapped and forced to being turned into a robot. Following up with the next issue, we see Sonic in a jail cell being held under watch of Antoine, awaiting trial that is put on hold, while the rest of the Freedom Fighters are cleaning up the mess that Mecha Sonic had made. Outside the jailhouse walls, we hear a protest in the form of a young Amy Rose, as we saw her in Sonic CD, as well as her first appearance in issue number 25, which was done to more or less retell Sonic's CD storyline, seeing that Sonic being imprisoned as unfair. According to things being put in place by King Acorn, they had extra supplies located by the jailhouse, apparently to get things up and running. After Sally has Amy removed to try to get a grip on the whole situation, with Sonic being snarky and sarcastic in regards to everything that happened, as one would expect from Sonic in a situation like this, we cut to the next morning with Sonic in a literal kangaroo court, which to those unaware just means that it's an unofficial court held by a group of people in order to try someone regarding, especially without good evidence, as a guilty of a crime or a misdemeanor. Sonic's trial goes on about as sane as you would think with prosecutor Antoine. He asks open and shut questions and badgers a witness quite literally. Afterwards, Sonic points out Knack the Weasel, the one who kidnapped him, who was supposed to be in jail, was missing. But it's not enough to prove Sonic's innocence, so they rule him guilty. Sonic's asked to prove his innocence and gets his sentence extended by 24 hours and places a tracker on him until he's able to clear his name. After finding the location of Knack the Weasel in a dive bar, he manages to push his way through the bouncer and gets the drop on Knack, only for Sonic to pass out with knockout gas, with Knack making his escape and calling on Robotnik. Robotnik at this point is busy rebuilding his city after the events of the mechs blowing it up, with Knack telling the doctor where he left Sonic unconscious. Unfortunately for him, Sonic is awake and knocks out Knack, and sends his vehicle on a crash course directly towards Robotnik. Sonic brings Knack in tow to clear his name from all charges, with some tongue-in-cheek about Sonic being more humble than Antoine. But with all that said, I'm bringing this comic to an end here. Hopefully you guys liked this first retrospective into the Sonic Archie series. If you liked it, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment if you think I should follow up on the side series, and yeah, don't forget to smack that bell to be notified when the next video will be out. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again real soon.